Hey y'all, I'm your host, Kennedy Brady. That's Kennedy like the president and Brady like the bunch, but since we're friends, you can call me Ken just like the Barbie. And this is KenRaeB. Now, you might be wondering who I am, what I'm doing, and why you're even listening to me talk right now. And we'll get into all that. But first, I just want to say thank you for tuning in to our first official episode. I'm really, really glad you're here. Before we dive in, I do want to give y'all just a few disclaimers. We're going to be getting into some gross stuff at times. The Bible is not for the faint of heart. I'll always do my best to give you a heads up if we're going to be rambling on about something you might not want to hear about or things you might not want little ears to hear about. For example, here in a little bit, we're going to talk a lot about sex, prostitution, and death. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, where did this whole podcast idea come from? As a junior in college, I had the opportunity to join Belmont's business ethics case competition team. Yeah, say that 5 times fast. To this day, I really don't understand why I was asked to join. I had missed quite a few assignments in my ethics class, and if you know me, you know that this is way out of character for me, considering I am, of course, an academic weapon. But if I'm being totally honest, a lot was happening in my life at the time that affected my studies. I was a student who commuted 3+ hours round trip to attend classes, an hour and a half to Nashville from my parents' house in the mountains, and an hour and a half home. On days that I didn't have class, I was at home taking on the role of my 90-year-old great grandmother's caretaker. And on the last day that I could have turned in all my ethics assignments, my mammal's health took a really serious dive. And lo and behold, I was the one on duty that day. It wasn't until they were loading her into the ambulance that I looked at the time, remembered all of my assignments, and realized that the due date was past, as if that day couldn't have gotten any worse. So I did what any uptight Dean's List goody two shoes would have done and emailed my ethics professor a very long winded explanation of my circumstances, along with an equally desperate plea for an extension. His response: "Sorry to hear about your grandmother, Kennedy. There's this ethics case competition, and I think you would be a great asset to the team. Would you actually be interested in joining?" So I walked away from the class with a B and an invitation, even though I was never really sure why I got invited because how do you know that I have a knack for ethics if I never turned in the assignments? But anyway, I went to this meeting to find out more about this competition team and what it would all entail. It turns out it was this huge project where the team would do tons and tons of research and come up with an ethical response to a corporate dilemma. Fun fact, ours was actually about workplace romances, and boy, is that a fun presentation to give. It would involve hours and hours and hours of work all semester long, including really early mornings and really late nights. But the competition was hosted in Florida, meaning that anyone on the team would get to enjoy a paid for weekend at the beach. So, duh, I signed up. In my mind, I figured it would be nice to be on campus more, especially since Mamaw had been moved to a nursing home with all of her health issues. Even though it was financially smarter to commute, I was always kind of jealous knowing that my closest friends were living, the quote unquote moved out adult life their junior and senior year. Spoiler to any of my younger listeners, college life is still not real life. Real life actually hits you like a big rig a few months after graduation. But this would be my chance to prove to myself that I could commute and still feel like a normal student on a normal team living the normal college life. Except nothing about this team was normal. As a team of 7, we were by far the largest ethics team that Belmont had ever had. We were commonly referred to as the real Belmont baseball team due to our size. We brainstormed solutions and we prepped documents and presentations and debated the best courses of action to take every single day, either at the crack of dawn or at the stroke of midnight. And I do mean that literally. Our 8 a.m. meetings meant that this little commuter would wake up at 4 a.m. to hit the road by 6 a.m. to put her butt in a seat by 8 a.m. And our 8 p.m. meetings meant wrapping up at 11 p.m. to drive an hour and a half home and hit the hay at 12:30 a.m., only to repeat one of those schedules again the next day. Honestly, I felt like I was in the TV show Suits, especially because we did have to dress like little lawyers for the competition. On our team was Anna, Katie, Morgan, Tessa, Kylie, and the only guy on our team, Colson. And then there was the glue that held all of us together, Dr. William Boyd Smith, our team's faculty advisor. Dr. Boyd cared about three things. Number one, that we do the work and we do it well. Number two, that we don't get sick before the competition. And number three, that we all became friends. When you spend so much time with such a tight knit group, you form a very natural bond in a rapid, almost unnatural amount of time. With all the time that we were spending together under this intense load of work, our team had to figure out how to have some fun and how to do it quickly. So we came up with two solutions: clementines and MQs. Dr. Boyd bought us literally upwards of 15 pounds of cuties over the course of the semester to ensure that our vitamin C was up so that we wouldn't get sick. When the competition prep got tough, we'd kick back, peel an orange, and let the MQs fly. MQ stood for Morgan Questions, which was a game where Morgan would ask the team a series of random, like, get to know you questions, some on the funnier side and some on the deeper side, just depending on what kind of mood the team was in. They ranged from, what's your favorite color and why, to, if you were on death row, what would your last meal be? And what exactly did you do to get yourself on death row to begin with? Fast forward about 2 months, and competition weekend is upon us. The whole team has flown in the air to stay by the ocean to get to DeLand, Florida. The competition hasn't happened yet, but to celebrate all the work we'd done, Dr. Boyd took us to dinner with a surprise beach visit afterwards. The seven of us couldn't help but goof off doing cartwheels in the sand and splashing around in the water, knowing good and well that we'd be soaked on our way back to the hotel. We loaded up into the 12-passenger white van we had rented for our huge team, very kidnapper-esque, I know, and drove back to the hotel. The next day was competition day, and between countless hours that we had spent on the presentation and the great dinner and the beach shenanigans, our whole team was a little bit delirious, which meant it was the perfect time for a few MQs. And so the question came up, if you could travel back to any time, what time would you travel back to? Obviously, as the certified Jesus freak of the group, my immediate answer to the team was, well, Bible times, duh. Of course, Kennedy would want to meet Jesus. Here's the dilemma: I already know Jesus, and we're pretty tight. I was talking about the Old Testament times where the real drama happens. Of course, when you think about the Old Testament, you probably think of the hundreds of laws in Leviticus or the never ending censuses in Numbers. Heck, when you think of the Bible as a whole, you might just think it's a couple thousand pages of rules. The truth is that there are stories that even today's soap operas couldn't beat. There are reasons behind the boundaries that God sets, and those reasons are typically because people are capital DUMB. And to start this podcast off, I'm going to flip to Genesis 38 and tell you the same story that I told them in the van that night. Does Tamar ring a bell? She was the daughter in law of Judah. Judah. Sound familiar? Judah was one of Jacob's 12 sons. To give you a quick crash course, the timeline went a little like this: Abraham had a son named Isaac, Isaac had a son named Jacob, and Jacob had 12 sons. Judah was the fourth son. Judah was actually the brother who suggested that the other 10 sons should sell Joseph, the guy with the Technicolor dream coat, into slavery. Yeah, Judah, as in Jesus' ancestor, the line of Judah. So Judah gets hitched to this Canaanite man's daughter, and already things are off to a bumpy start. Traditionally, the lineage of Abraham has married within the family. Abraham married his cousin Sarah, Isaac married one of his cousins, Rebecca, and Jacob married two sisters that were his cousins, Rachel and Leah. The family, the line of Abraham, was not to marry the Canaanites or other people groups who didn't serve God or worship God or live according to his word. So what does Judah do? Yeah, marries outside the family. Between selling his brother into slavery and then rebelling against not only family tradition, but God's plan, I hope you can already tell that we're in for a ride. Anyway, Judah and this Canaanite woman have three sons: Onan, and Shelah. Now, there was quite an age gap between Onan and baby Shelah, so keep that in mind for later. Judah looks around one day and realizes, hey, there's no pitter pattering of little feet, there's no little toddler giggles. Hey, there's nobody calling me grandpa. And Judah decides it's time to continue his lineage and for his firstborn to get married. Again, lineages are huge during this time. You had to be cranking those babies out. God did say be fruitful and multiply after all. So Judah found a wife named, you guessed it, Tamar. Now, we don't exactly know what was doing: tax fraud, arson, double dipping in the cheese dip at the Mexican restaurant. But what we do know is that whatever he was doing was evil in the Lord's sight. So got. as in the Lord put him to death. Now, this is obviously troubling for the family, but especially for Tamar. Women didn't really have any of the same rights and privileges that we have in today's world. So when died, Tamar could have been left in a situation where she had no financial or familial stability, especially because kicked the bucket before they had a child together. But thankfully, Tamar was protected by some certain customs of the time. Traditionally, back in her day, if brothers lived together, like and Onan and Shelah did, and one of them died, the widow would not remarry outside of the family. Instead, she's to marry her brother in law, who would, wink wink, perform marital duties and have a child. Here's the kicker: this child would carry the name of the dead husband, even though it would biologically be the live brother's baby. And if the brother in law didn't agree to this, he would be shamed publicly for not taking care of the widow and not helping to continue the family line. With out of the picture, Judah goes to Onan and is like, "Hey, pal, I know everybody's having a really hard time right now, but the clock is ticking and it's time to perform your brotherly and husbandly duties." And Onan agrees. I mean, nobody wants to break tradition, right? So Onan and Tamar get down to it. And I'm guessing that this is probably a bit of an awkward situation, right? I mean, Tamar's husband's just died, and now Onan is sleeping with his dead brother's wife. And somewhere in Onan's noggin, it starts to hit him that whatever child he and Tamar have together won't be his. It's going to be Er's. And that guy was so wicked, God literally struck him down, and now the kid is going to carry his name? Are you kidding me? Like, how much sense does that make? Onan mentally can't take it, but he's physically in the middle of something. And just as Onan is about to close the deal, oh gosh, there are two words that I promised my mom I would not say. You know what? Actually, let's just read what the Bible says. He wasted his seed on the ground so that he would not have offspring for his brother. You know what? He practiced coitus interruptus. That's Latin. You can Google it and get the picture. I hope you're proud of me, Mom. So imagine poor Tamar lying there. Her wicked husband has just died. She's sleeping with her brother in law, and the genetic material she needs to have this baby is literally on the ground. So they're in quite a mess, emotionally and physically. Well, lo and behold, this is also wicked in the Lord's sight. So God kills Onan. Now, you might be thinking, geez, Kennedy, that's kind of harsh just for a little coitus interruptus. But the thing is that it wasn't just that he undid the deed, it's that he deliberately tried to thwart God's protection of this widow and his plan for this lineage. And he physically and emotionally used another person to do it. I think that this is a really good lesson to us that the heart of God breaks when we take advantage of each other. Because, I mean, that's what Onan did. He used Tamar for his pleasure, and I say that because it was clearly obvious that he was having a good time, but yet he deprived her of the entire purpose of the situation. So there were consequences. With two sons dead, Judah is just really going through it. In his time, sons were everything. I mean, that's your whole legacy right there. And in a very short period of time, Judah has gone from 3 to 1, only left with baby Shelah. So Judah's got a stall. To him, there's one common thread between his sons' deaths. The thread being that they were both getting it on with Tamar. So Judah tells Tamar to go back to her own father's house because Shelah hasn't come of age yet. Judah promises Tamar that once Shelah is of age, he'll send for her so she can marry Shelah and the family legacy can continue when they have babies and everything will be right back on track. So Tamar's crashing, and by that I mean she's crashing out and she's crashing at her parents' house. Judah and his Canaanite woman and Shelah are all mourning the loss of and Onan. Actually, just make that Judah and baby Shelah because now Judah's wife has also died. Yeah, lots of death in this story. So once Judah has some time to grieve, he and one of his best friends decide to take a little boys' trip. He and his friend Hira are going to go take a little road trip and get their sheep sheared. Sheep shorn, sheep, whatever. They're cutting the wool off of their sheep and they're making a trip out of it. On the way to their destination, though, they have to pass through Tamar's hometown. So a little bird comes up to Tamar and is like, "Hey, do you know your father in law is coming through town?" So it's at this point that she realizes enough time has passed for Shelah to have grown up, yet she has no ring and no baby to show for it. So she gets up and she takes off her mourning clothes, and I don't mean pajamas, mourning clothes as in like her black widow's clothes, okay? Then puts a veil over her face so that nobody would recognize her. She's pulling a Joe from you, like how the minute he puts on that baseball cap, he's just unrecognizable. which, side note, has never worked for me. But regardless, it works wonders for Tamar. So in this veil, she sits by the entrance of the town right beside the road. And Lord have mercy, but who comes along? None other than Judah. And Judah sees this woman covering her face, and his brain immediately goes, now that's a prostitute if I've ever seen one. And he goes right up to her on the side of the road and says, baby, what does it take to get down with you? So Tamar goes with the flow and is like, well, sir, what are you going to give me? I don't take Venmo or Apple Pay. So Judah's got to come up with some payment. And he promises to give Tamar a goat. Yeah, a goat. But Tamar, she's running the game, okay? At this point, Judah is playing checkers while Tamar is playing chess. So she's all, I don't see a goat with you. Looks like you just have a bunch of sheep. You have to give me something now as a placeholder for the goat. I want collateral. So Judah, only thinking with one part of his body, is like, what do you want? I'll give you whatever. To which Tamar asked for his signet ring, his cord, and his staff. Now, these are all items that identify him and his household, okay? It's like she didn't just ask for cash. She asked for his driver's license, his social security card, and his Sam's Club membership card. And he gives them to her. Straight up, no questions asked. This man is just ready to go to town. So Judah and Tamar get freaky. And I say that because, at least the way I'm reading it, Tamar doesn't take off the mask the whole time. So this entire time, Judah was so amped up that he literally didn't care who she was or even seeing her face. Which does beg the question, if he didn't see her face, then what did he see that got him going? But the truth is that some questions are probably better left unanswered. Anyway, the pair does the deed and they go their separate ways. After shearing all his sheep, Judah goes home and remembers he's got to pay up. He's got to deliver the goat that he promised this prostitute. So he sends the goat via Hira, the bestie that he took the trip with. Something tells me that Judah's probably feeling a little embarrassed for sleeping with a prostitute like that, which is why he doesn't go himself. Or maybe he's worried that if he sees the prostitute again, history is going to repeat itself. Anyway, Hira is walking all around town like, where the freak is this veiled prostitute? And he's being bold and he's going up to people like, so I'm trying to close the deal here. I have this goat for this prostitute, and where is she at? She sits by the gate of the town. Y'all know who I'm talking about? I just need to deliver this goat and get out of here. And all the people of this town are like, what kind of drugs are you on? Dude, there is no prostitute. There has never been a prostitute. And your goat is smelly and it's leaving pellets everywhere. Can you just get out? So Judah's BFF returns and is like, I have no ring, no cord, and no staff because there was no prostitute. Judah, I have no idea who you slept with. So Judah realizes that he's losing the battle, okay? He's like, I'm just going to let her keep what she has, or else I'm going to become a laughing stock if this goes on for too long. So let's fast forward about 3 months, right around the time where a young mother might start showing. And wouldn't you know it, Tamar is late. And I'm not talking about to a party, but late, late. That's right, she's pregnant by her father in law. So after their late night encounter, Tamar puts back on her widow's clothes and just leaves, never to play prostitute again. She has got her baby, finally. So Judah gets word that his daughter-in-law is pregnant because she's been acting like a prostitute, and he is not happy about it. At this point, I don't think he's thinking with any part of his body because this man really did not put two and two together. Judah is aghast. I mean, how dare she, right? This is his family name we're talking about. And sure, he's not doing the right thing by denying her his last son, but she's acting like a prostitute and she is pregnant with Lord knows whose child. So, like any level headed guy in this situation, Judah calls for Tamar to be burned to death. Tamar goes to Judah and is like, you know what, Daddy O? I am pregnant, and all this stuff belongs to my baby daddy. This you? And she whips out his ring and his cord and his staff. Now, you might as well call Judah Terry because this man slung it in reverse, okay? He throws up his hands and is like, you know what? You're right. You are in the right. I was wrong because I didn't give you baby Shay. And honestly, props to him because there's probably nothing a dude hates worse than to admit he's in the wrong. And here Judah is admitting it all. And thank God they did not know each other intimately again. Months pass, and it's time for Tamar to finally have her promised child. And surprise, it's twins. And Judah's line lives on. And guess what? Why don't you flip right over to Matthew chapter 1? Yeah, take a close look at that lineage. Ooh, what's that? You see Judah and Tamar? You're telling me Jesus is a descendant of this utter chaos? Now, I think we can all safely say that everyone in this story is some level of messed up, okay? And Onan both acted wickedly. Tamar was low key a deceiving seductress, and Judah was impulsive and violent. But all throughout the story, there's God between every line and every word working towards salvation through Jesus. Literally, this is the Savior's lineage. And let's face it, we can all relate to someone in this story. Maybe you're a Tamar and you're taking wild measures to gain control of a situation because you don't see your end of the deal being fulfilled. Maybe you're Judah and you're acting impulsively and calling for someone to be burned to death, metaphorically, of course, all while failing to see that it takes two to tango. Or maybe you're Onan and you're so in your own head and focused on yourself and what you want that you've wronged somebody else. As for me, I've been all of these people. Every single one. I want to take control of things I need to keep my hands away from. I want to think of myself first. I want to act impulsively without any consequences for any of my actions. But here's what I take away from this story, and here's what I think we all took away from the story that night in the van. For all of the craziness that you just heard, the death, the bad sex, the prostitution, the murder threats, God still worked through it. He still brought something good, the literal savior out of it. Whatever crazy that you and I have going on, whether it be circumstances you found yourself caught up in or actions that you intentionally took, if God can work through Judah and Tamar, there's nothing you've done that's too chaotic, too crazy, or too sinful for him to work through. As the story ended in the van that night, it spurred a few questions from my teammates. Okay, so what about the guy who almost sacrificed his son on the altar? Did he end up killing him? We went from talking about Judah and Tamar to Abraham and Isaac, and then to how crazy messed up all the people in the Bible seem to be. What do you mean that this super holy, rigid rule book actually talks about this stuff? I remember looking up into the rearview mirror and seeing Dr. Boyd's face just glowing red. I figured I was either in huge trouble with him or he was so embarrassed by me talking about coitus interruptus that he would never speak to me again. But when we got out of the van that night, Dr. Boyd pulled me to the side and he told me, Kennedy, you really have something here. Like, I don't know if you realize it, but you do have to do something with that. And so here I am. You can find KenRaeB on Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcast at KenRaeB. You can find me on Facebook under my name, Kennedy Brady. If reading is more your style, you can find me on Substack at, you guessed it, KenRaeB. Thanks for listening.